Welcome to FemLead, the podcast on female leadership and role models. This show aims to inspire and equip you with the tools you need to navigate your career plans. FemLead brings inspiring career perspectives and strategies to guide your path to success. Your host, Alexandra, will interview role models on new exciting topics with each episode. If you like what you hear, give us a review and subscribe to the show on your preferred streaming platform. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode and a new season of FemLead podcast. This is a special interview that we filmed live, and I'm very excited to tell you what are our new episodes this season. My next guest is a role model for Denmark and a champion for equality and women empowerment. She started her career as a defense lawyer and soon became partner at Wagner Attorneys. She became the CEO of the group company Freeway in 2017, and in 2020, she stepped down as CEO to co-found Nordic Female Founders. Yes, you guessed right. Today, Mia Wagner is joining us at FemLead Podcast. She is the co-founder and CEO of Nordic Female Founders, and together with co-founder Anne Stampe Olesen, they fight for equal terms for males and females in entrepreneurship. She is known for her performance in the Danish version of Dragon's Den, Løvens Hule, and today she's here to tell us more about her career, life, and how we can help women in entrepreneurship. It is important for Mia to use her voice for justice and equality. She is an active voice in the debate for gender equality in Denmark, and she is a board member at Unicef in Denmark. This is a very special episode, and it's one of those moments when you need to pinch yourself. But yes, this is an episode that we are now going to share with you. It's an honor to introduce Mia Wagner, and I hope you all enjoy this interview. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you.
It's really an honor to have you here today. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the audience. So I just want to say welcome again, and I think this is going to be a very interesting interview. How are you today?
Well, I'm fine. Been a bit stressful this morning. But I am fine and I'm very happy to be here and I'm just looking forward.
Thank you. I want to mention to the audience how we've met at the Nordic Women in Tech Awards and how you won Investor of the Year together with Anne.
I did, and I was so surprised. We were not expecting to win that prize, but we did.
Yes, it was a very nice. It was a very nice introduction also to you personally, because I've been a fan online, and obviously we all know your work in Denmark. But I think it was really a pivotal moment for me to also ask you to join this interview. So thanks again for accepting. We're here in person. We're in Denmark. We're in Copenhagen, and this is going to be an interview about Mia's career, life, and how you are helping women in entrepreneurship. So let's start. Great. You have a career history of being a CEO for the family-owned business Freeway.
Yeah.
And in 2020, you co-founded Nordic Female Founders.
I did.
With your career experience, is there anything that changed in terms of how you see success, or if anything changed on how you see success?
Yeah, I think that was one of the reasons I needed to start my own company along with Anne. It was because I have in me another idea of success than there was room for as the group CEO of Freeway where I was before. So and probably due to my past also being a lawyer and working with the private civil rights, I just found it was so important to also have a criteria of success that's about people. And of course about making an impact. So what we're building now is what you would call an impact company.
Exactly. So tell us then, from your career of being a lawyer, from your career as a CEO, what did you bring into Nordic Female Founders? Any lessons or something that was missing and you added it now? What did you bring from your experience there?
Oh, I think, I do meet a lot of entrepreneurs and what I really see, one of the key learnings is that the company is the founder. So in many ways, this is Anne's and my creation, and also so much a symbol of who we are and the learnings I have had, and of course the learnings Anne has had. So for me, it was, as I said, I've always been a feminist, in the meaning that I do believe in equal opportunities for everyone. And also, of course, because I have seen in the past what it means when women haven't got the choice to, choose a life in dignity, you might say. So this is a part of me, and there wasn't really room for that before. Other things is, of course, being aware that money isn't everything. You have to build something meaningful, and I needed that. And then I have also been the mediator. I've worked as a mediator. So it was important to me to have a very, you might say, holistic way of thinking. And all of that is in the company culture now. And I think also some of what's defining our current success, because we have found a way of sort of putting all of this together. And of course, are still trying to find out how is that a product for people. Yeah. And all of that is just very much me.
Yeah. Well, that sounds wonderful. I really love the fact that you mentioned having a life that is meaningful. Because when we discuss career objectives, sometimes some of us, and I know that the audience can also resonate, we think of roles in terms of position, title, money, and every status, whatever it brings. And at some point in your life, you consider other aspects. Do you feel like this was the time, with 2020 being also the pandemic year, and a lot of people said it was a meaningful year for them? Do you feel like it also changed something in you to decide to start Nordic Female Founders?
I don't think the pandemic had anything to do with it.
Okay.
It was more my private life, my personal life, and my experience as a professional woman. All of that, bringing that together. My children being older, they're teenagers now, so there was room for it. Me having a certain amount of experience and trust in myself and my own capabilities. And so all of the opportunities in one, of course, also me having done the TV program, Løvens Hule, that all of that together just made it possible right now to do it. And then I had very much the feeling of, I'm in the middle of my 40s now. If I'm not going to do it now, it will just be too late. So it was also, and I think that's one of the things age gives you, this way of being careful about yourself and listening to your own inner me. Because I had been wanting this for a while, for actually many years, and I just owed it to myself to do it now. So all of these things were important. And I must say, when I started my career, I could do two things. I could study law, or I could study medicine. So I wanted to become I just don't know the English term for that. So a doctor, you might say. I wanted to work with forensic science. That was my first ambition. And so I started studying medicine, and I failed. And then I just decided, okay, there's only one option left. Then I can become a lawyer. And then I did that. So I had a very narrow-minded approach to career in my early years, whereas now I do it the other way around. I try to understand who am I and what are my special talents and how can I bring that to the world.
That's very, very beautiful, and so happy you're mentioning all of these things, because I feel like when you're in the spotlight already, people feel like you have it all figured out.
I haven't.
And it's so human to have moments when you're like, well, this is not really fulfilling for me, so let me try something else. I really feel it's a beautiful lesson to consider. Let's talk a little bit about your co-founder and your relationship with your co-founder, because you and Anne have known each other from Freeway. She was a COO, and in 2020 together you launched a new company. How important is it to have a good relationship with your co-founder?
I think the relationship we have, Anna and I, are really interesting, because in the beginning, she wanted to be friends, you might say. And in my world, we were colleagues. I was the one who could fire her. I was the one who could let her go. So I had a power that would always, affect our relationships, because we wouldn't be equal. And I had also, towards the company, an obligation to always be professional. And so can you have a friendship in that? That was a struggle for me as this group CEO. And in other ways, we just had a great connection. So eventually I just had to give up. And we did become great friends. And we just found out that we worked so well together. And then on the other hand, because this was my own decision to do something else. So I had a lot of struggle not telling anyone. Because when you are the group CEO, you don't tell your employees that you're going to leave, because it just had too much of an influence in the company. It's a part of your responsibility. So I couldn't even tell her. But eventually she figured it out. And just, it took her not even 30 seconds just to go, I'm in. I want to be here. I want to do what you do. And then, gave us so much strength, knowing that we could do this together. And for me, knowing that she trusted me so much. And this was just a great way to start something new. And, in the beginning, we didn't even know what we wanted to do. We knew we needed to work with how can we help improve the conditions for female entrepreneurs in Denmark, but we didn't yet know how. And so we developed that together. And of course, then you grow upon each other. And we do talk, at least 3 times a day. And are both aware of when are we good together and when are we not. So for me, we use the term synchronized. So in many ways, we're just perfectly synchronized. And then sometimes we're just not. And then we have to be able to talk about that.
Yeah, that's very important. Communication and also having the feeling that you're trusted in your partnership, because that's key to anything working, right?
Yeah, and that's the important thing about having a co-founder as opposed to having an employee or a partner in other ways. Yeah.
And for the listeners that are considering stepping into entrepreneurship, from your experience of now being a co-founder, what are some of the lessons or advice you have for them starting up?
The key advice I always give is to somehow get to action. We do have a lot of dreams, and so did I. And I waited for quite some time before I eventually did it. And, everything went well. I was totally scared doing it, but so far it's been really good. So I think the number one key learning is just to do something, and don't make it big. Just do today any small step you might find just to get a little closer to your dream, whatever it is. So, because we do sometimes spend a lot of time thinking, which is great, but we have to get to action before we actually move. And we don't have to know everything before we do. We just have to do something. So that's important for me to say. And then, of course, I think it's important to acknowledge the risks you might feel. And we do know from research, at least in Denmark, that women do tend to want more secure, to feel more secure before they actually act. So how can you do both at once, maybe? How could you acknowledge that I need to know that I have money for, whatever I need for my children and what you might have needs, and do respect that, and then still, take the little actions you can make. And then eventually, I do hope that we all, as female entrepreneurs, try to find a way to think big and think scalable. And that's one of the things I do see, because I do talk to a lot of female entrepreneurs, and I really think we need to challenge that we sometimes just think too small.
That's a very interesting learning from you, also from seeing so many women with ideas coming to you asking for advice. And I will get back to that question shortly. I do want to mention something about Lion's Den, Dragon's Den in the TV show that you are now also on. It's still rolling. You are now the only woman on the panel.
I am.
And for all of us watching, you are the role model when it comes to women in entrepreneurship.
I'm glad to know.
Well, yes, and also I think it, as a listener or the audience of that show, let's say, you being the only woman in the panel, I'm curious to know if you feel any pressure to represent women in entrepreneurship.
I sort of felt it the other way around.
Okay.
Because I arrived in Dragon's Den, you might call it, or Shark Tank, or Løvens Hule. It has many names. I think it's even done in Japan. So I arrived just as me. Of course, yes, being, a believer of equality and being, in a way, a feminist, but I was quite conscious about this is not the stage for that. This is the stage for me as a professional investor. So I didn't bring it with me in the den. But eventually it just sort of, it just occurred. So in a way it has chosen me, I feel, rather than I have chosen it, to be a role model. And I just, I saw how people, or women and men as well, just began to look at me as another way of doing things. Also being able to talk about things that are difficult, when a traditional, business leader maybe is not allowed to talk about having, stress or feeling bad. This was also a part of what I did. And then eventually I got just a lot of messages from all kinds of people feeling, loving that someone would say this out loud. And so it seemed that there was a need. And of course, then I just, did more because it's who I am, but I just didn't bring it in the beginning.
Well, that's a very nice reflection. Thank you.
And to answer the question, no, I don't feel a pressure. I am conscious about the responsibility it implies on me. Also trying to be realistic, because when I was a young lawyer and I read all these newspaper articles or magazines about women doing it, having success, that was a pressure for me. I was thinking, how can they do this? I have 2 little kids at home, and I was even divorced, and I was a partner in a law firm. I was working all the time, and I felt in times terrible. I thought it was a major pressure to be a good person and a successful person. And what is that even? So I've felt that it was important whenever I'm asked also to talk about what's hard and tell the story of, yes, it has been a struggle, and it has, it had a cost.
Yeah. And because now you're talking from your perspective as being now a co-founder of Nordic Female Founders, I would like to mention, to add a question about entrepreneurship and business in general and how women are perceived. For our male audience, how can they be promoters of more women and equality and women in leadership?
I usually say, well, just please open your mind and open your eyes, because, well, at least what we see in Denmark is the understanding of how it is to be a woman or even another minority, because women as entrepreneurs, in my perspective, are minorities in Denmark. To get the understanding of what is this feeling? How did I feel the first time I entered a boardroom and I was the only woman? How can we sort of give an understanding for that perspective? And we need the traditional men to look at us and ask, and try to be active in getting an understanding of that what you see is not what I see. That's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah. And what do you, when you look at entrepreneurs, what do you see as traits to succeed?
Well, the funny thing is, the more I work with this, and we have met, I think, more than 500 female entrepreneurs in the last year. And of course, also when I do Løvens Hule, it's a great place to be, because I get to see a lot of companies in short time. I'm really getting even more aware of how biased I am also. To really broaden the perspective of who is it that has the capacity to become a success. But of course, you do need to be engaged. You must be ready to, I do work a lot. I do. So that's also sometimes a part of it, but I have a flexible life. That's a good thing. So I can be with my children when needed. And then what's really, really important for me when I choose to work with someone is that you're willing to learn, that you're willing to listen and learn and try things out. And that's also where, just whenever it just doesn't turn out well, it's when I feel that whatever knowledge I can provide for you, if you cannot accept that and be willing to work with it, then you will not be able to grow, or at least you will not be able to grow at the pace I wish you to. So that's really important to me. How can we work together, and how can I make sure that you as an entrepreneur are willing to take these key learnings and actually make them happen?
Yeah, a lot of advice. So everybody that's listening can really get a lot of your perspective in business. And Nordic Female Founder is a much needed organization, because, like you said, you just mentioned here, women in Denmark are a minority in business.
Yeah.
So what surprised you most when working with women together with Nordic Female Founders? Is there something that surprised you about, how they approach business and so on?
Yeah, it's a bit sad, actually, because what surprised me most was this sense of loneliness. And I think that's also one of the reasons that we have, we have a lot of traction right now, and many people are coming towards us. And I remember it from my own, when I was a partner in the law firm, how you can feel really lonely when you are a woman in business, because who can you actually talk to, and who can actually understand your perspectives? That's why it's so important bringing women together. So that was quite amazing, and in a way, also sad.
Yeah. Well, since we talk about investment and entrepreneurship, can you tell us, what do you think it's a winning strategy for a pitch?
Yes, first of all, be well prepared.
Mm.
Do the training at home. Do ask a lot of people, how do you find my pitch deck? Is this what you need to know? And be prepared about who am I actually addressing now. So what would their needs be, what would their interests be. And in any negotiation, I would always be very aware of, what is my playing field here? What is important to the persons I'm gonna meet? What motivates them? What kind of, if you are, pitching as an entrepreneur, is also, what are their goals when it comes to success? And be aware of speaking and talking to them. And well, you see, it's also a matter of not making it too long and giving room for questions. And that's really where I learn the most, is when we pose questions, when I see what is the entrepreneur's approach to these questions. Do they listen? Do they try carefully to answer, or do they just do their own thing? Because that's so important. I think that would be the most important thing. And I do feel that when someone pitched before me, that I would like to see that they respect my time. And that's why I expect them to be well prepared.
Oh, well, insights. So that's very kind of you. Now people can also understand a bit of the investor perspective, if they haven't, that time is precious. And it matters that you are efficient, straight to the point, and you also showcase what the value is. Exactly. Of someone listening to your story. Exactly. And that's the straight to the point is important too. And sometimes if you haven't done it a lot, you tend to talk a lot about all the things you want to do. And it's really important that you listen to what are the questions posed, because then you know what's important for the investor, and then just stay on them. Very, very good advice. Tell us then, what is the focus of Nordic Female Founders when it comes to businesses and profiles? What sort of profiles are you looking for, or what sort of businesses are you looking for? As investors? Yes. Yeah, because I think maybe it's relevant just to say we're investing in different ways, because of course we do make our own investments, Anne and I, but we are more than that, because what we want to build is a framework for really making an impact. And we do that through our investors club. So we gather a lot of investors, and in that also because we acknowledge we need more female investors. So we're sort of right now, I think you might even say we're an incubator for female business angels. That's one thing we're doing. And of course, the good pitch we get, we present to them. And so in that way we can make, great syndicates too. And then we also, of course, do a lot of, and we will do even more of it, a lot of, preparing the female entrepreneurs, also making sure and helping that the business model they build is actually scalable. And we do that in different ways. So these are the way we want to strengthen both sides of the ecosystem in one, just because we think then we can make the greatest impact. And of course, the final thing we are working on is we feel that it's relevant to establish early boards in these even early startups. And in that way, we could also, bring more female board members to the table, giving them important experience, but also because this is what benefits the entrepreneur to, as fast as possible, get a professional leadership. So that's how we're working. And just to answer your question, what was it once again? The question was, what sort of people or profiles are you looking for when you look at the scale of the business? Well, it's mostly personality more than it's education, really. And I do really enjoy when you are well educated, because then usually you know how to stay focused, and you know how to have a good method in acquiring the knowledge needed to actually implement it in your business. So of course it's great when you do, but more important is what is your approach to what you're doing. And that's why it's, well, once again, in the Løvens Hule, we have so little time. So I'm really, training myself in how can I, in very short time, find out most possible about a person. And that's a lot about, trying to read them. But I do prefer to have more time. And then it's really a question of maybe not so much what do you bring to the table the first time I meet you, but how do you move forward from the first time to the next time I meet you? Have you
been listening to what we have been talking about? Have you gathered new learnings? Have you listened to your market and your customers? And how are you trying to improve yourself and your business idea? Because that's what you're going to need all the way through as your company develops. You need to always be willing to change, to develop your own mindset.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like an overarching theme of what you're sharing from your experience in investment and looking at businesses is that it's a parallel street between having support, as in investment, a good board, leadership team that supports, and taking the power of your own business, definitely moving it forward, not waiting for someone to tell you exactly what to do, but rather, like you said, try it out, listen to the feedback, implement it in different ways.
Definitely. And that's so much what I prefer to work with, is someone that's very conscious about your own responsibility. And we have it ourselves, as people too. I mean, making a good life and getting what you might feel would be a successful life, it is your own responsibility. And it is your own responsibility to listen to whatever's, your dream, and go for it. I can't do it for you, and I will not do it for you. I can only support.
Yeah. Well, this is great advice. I'm sure a lot of people are taking a lot of learnings in. And obviously, this is an opportunity for them to consider how they've done things and what to change or how to approach them in order to maybe, as you said, try something new and get a different outcome. When we talk about sexism in investment, because that's also something you covered in an interview. And in 2020, you shared, and I'm going to quote now, "I have experienced both internal and external barriers, but the way you handle it is different, depending on whether you are young and newly educated or 42 years old and have tried a little bit of everything." What do you advise women then that are starting now their careers? What should they be aware of? What is a mindset that they should step into in business?
It is a difficult question, because of course it's built on so many years of experience, and how could you just put that into one answer? I think, first of all, you need to understand that whatever barriers you're meeting is not due to your personality. It's not due to who you are. It's a matter of the culture you're in. And just, by first of all acknowledging that, because when I was young, I just felt I had to do better all the time. I just, prepared even more, and I just, just tried to be as brainy as I could in order to be heard. Because that's one of the things that when you are in a very male-dominated forum, it can be difficult as a woman to be heard. And then also, not only that they can hear the sound of your voice, but also that they will actually listen to what you bring to the table. So that's number one. You're not alone. It's not just you. It's a culture. But then again, this is the world you're living in, if it is, of course. So do spend time trying to understand what's going on. If you're in a company, what's really going on? Who gets promoted? Who gets, time, at the table? And how can I put myself in that position? So we can't always change the rules of the game. Sometimes we just need to learn the rules of the game, and then eventually, maybe we can change something. But that's also why we need to talk about how it is to be a professional woman, because we have to sort of develop a new culture, because we're as women, due to many hundred years of differences between male and female opportunities, you might say, we just need to have a culture that's strong enough, and we don't have that yet, to really be able to change something. Right now, we also have to understand what's going on right now where I am. And then you really do have to be conscious about what you want for yourself. What is your personal success? And then try to position yourself, so you can get it. Because and really don't wait for someone else to give it to you.
This sparkled a question that I'm going to ask about the balance between being feminine in what the world means, which is very broad. It means something different to everybody, and being taken seriously.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask this question because we are aware, all of us, that there are situations where if you don't show up in a certain way, you will not be taken seriously. What is your view on how women show up when it comes to, positioning themselves, finding that way to make it happen? Because if they don't feel listened to, what should they do? Should they change anything? Because then we go into this dilemma of like, well, I don't want to become a man because it's just not the situation, right? I mean, we're just debating that. What can we do then?
It's difficult because in the way you ask the question, it's like you as a woman have the responsibility alone. So, in many places or conditions, we're just the one woman wanting something. And then still we are an entire culture that needs to change. So we have to sort of, do
balance
both.
it,
Balance it.
Yeah.
And that's why, of course, we have to do things like what we're doing now. And in that way also we need to, and I do that quite a lot, talk to the bigger companies, giving an understanding of what is their responsibility in this. How can they open the world so they see the potential that is maybe not right now, not visible. But when you talk about what can you do as the woman entering the room? What should you do? We're back at this, in one way, yes, of course, you also need to take responsibility for the change, but you also need to acknowledge the world you're in right now, the game set or the you're in. So I do think that there is a balance. I mean, I usually say I wouldn't what's called rails. I wouldn't look too sweet and nice when I was a lawyer and I went to court, because I needed to gain the respect from the judge quite fast.
Exactly, yeah.
So of course I was always very well prepared, and I always knew, exactly where I had my client. And in that way, it was important to me to be very professional, as it would if I was a man. It's the same. So of course we need to be professional in what we do. And I think it's very important. And this is new. I mean, you're younger than me. The younger ones, the younger women and men are so much better at this than we are, because we just grew up in a different world of how can I stay myself and how can I keep this individual freedom and still be a professional. It's difficult. So you have to some way just stay true to yourself and still respect the world you're in.
It is a balance, and I'm happy you mentioned that. I'm curious to hear, before we wrap up soon, is there anything that surprised you in your career?
Many things did. I think the thing that surprises me the most always is that I'm, in a way, I'm a person that I set goals and I put my mind to achieve these goals, but it just never happens. Because something new and better always turns up. So I really, in one way, I do enjoy this is my mindset. I always go for something and just keep on working until I achieve it. But I just also have to acknowledge that it's always somehow it's just getting better, and I need to make space for that. So I need to not be too narrow-minded in my approach to other people and other businesses. And that means the key learning for me is always to, stay focused on how can we create value together with whoever I meet, because that's where we grow. And if I'm too narrow-minded about my goals, I will maybe say no to some opportunities. So that has surprised me.
That's very interesting. If you look back, would you say you would do anything differently?
Yeah, I think I would. I think I would have become, I would have built my own company earlier. But I must also say this was just the timing for me was great. And I think it is important also in all of these conversations to remember the room for being a parent, if that's what you want.
Yeah.
And giving, space for yourself. And just, sometimes we just need to relax and do what and we must really try to do things we enjoy doing also when we work. And we also have to, have spare time for our loved ones. And I think that's maybe why this was the best timing for me, because my children are, 15 and 16. So I get more, well, I mean, they don't need me that much anymore, unfortunately.
When you talk about work-life balance, how do you balance then you working a lot, like you've mentioned earlier, and also your personal life? What is some advice that, from your experience and from being obviously quite busy, How do you manage it? And I'm asking this because sometimes I get messages on LinkedIn. That's my platform. About discussing motherhood, discussing work-life balance, discussing how to manage a difficult manager and so on, and not take that with you home.
It is difficult, and I'm not sure quite. I haven't quite, I don't know yet. I'm still working on that, and I'm 44. So I think, first of all, I usually say maybe you shouldn't look at me because I do work too much, and at least in some times of the year I do, as I do currently now, because I'm also now being shown on the TV screen, and that does affect my life quite a lot. And so the one big loser in can we say in my daily life when I do as I do right now, because these months I do work a lot, it's me. I'm the last one in line in a way, the private me, because it's of course my children first, and then it's the business, and then how much time is left for me. And I know I can do this for a while, and then I have to stop, and I have to remember myself. And it has been a problem for me earlier on. So I'm really getting so much better at just remembering that I'm here too as a person, and I do have needs. So every day I try to do nice things for myself, and the feeling of really being loving towards yourself. I think it took me quite some years to learn, and I got the great advice. You have to find out what gives you energy and try to be in that. The different thing for me now as a co-founder is I do what gives, this is my life and it gives me energy. I like being here and of course having the honor of being in some way a role model. That's great. I will be happy when I go, when I leave this interview. So I try to be very conscious about doing things I love. And then it's okay to work a lot. But I also need to be conscious about how do I regain energy? What do I do to fill my cup, and not being too neglective about it. Yeah. And I really also think it's important to acknowledge motherhood or fatherhood, giving the space for that. And then maybe you should just move slower. It would be okay. Because, yesterday I was just looking at photos from when my kids were small, and it was just devastating because I will never get these years back. They're gone for now. I can only look at pictures, and I really, I love my children the age they have now, but I miss them from when they were small. So this is important too. That's life too. So you need to make space for that.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I do want to ask you before we wrap up, what are the plans with Nordic Female Founders?
Well, right now it's just moving so fast that I can barely keep up myself, because the attention we get is so great, and the acknowledgement we get it's fantastic. Everybody's just so positive about what we're doing.
I follow you on Instagram and everywhere, and I always see fantastic news daily. So it's really amazing.
Yeah, and in some way we also managed to do quite a lot in short times. That's great too, and it of course shows what a great partnership we have. The plans are, just this June we're opening up our Female Founders House, and there it will be. We will make, we'll try to address all the issues we have found within the last year. So we will of course have make a room. It's an office space really with. You can bring your children, you can even bring your dog, and bringing people together in a different way. But what we're going to do is we're going to gather investors and entrepreneurs and a lot of important knowledge. So you will be educated once you're in the house. All members of the house will have access to, of course, how do I build a good pitch? What would be a good innovation process for me? How do I manage my finances? Because that's really a big issue. Where could I get the best funding? And the great thing is, I've been talking to a lot of professionals and they all want to chip in. So there will be a lot of knowledge accessible in this house. And this is what's important to me, because I know the barriers for female entrepreneurs is, I think maybe getting the right knowledge, getting access to the right people, and then this personal development. Getting an understanding of who can I be as a female entrepreneur, because we're different. We need new role models. We need to define a new culture. And we're trying to build a physical room to gather all of this in one space. And of course, my dreams and Anne's dreams too is to make even more of these houses. In a perfect world throughout the world and globally, because this is not just a European problem or a Danish problem. It's a global issue.
And how can people find out about it or apply?
Well, they can right now they can apply through we're working together with someone called E01, and they are a really big what would be the English one? They own a lot of buildings here in Copenhagen, so they're really professional about this, and they're supporting us a great deal. And they would be the one managing the office spaces. And then I think in about in the end of March or April, we will announce what we call memberships, where you can just be a member and get access to the knowledge, but not necessarily have an office space. So you should just follow us on LinkedIn. And you will know about this.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's good to know, because it's also maybe a start of a community yet to be launched, and people should know about it. Yeah.
Yeah, it is very much in its early stage, but what we do get quite a great feedback on is this is something needed. So I'm sure this will be great.
Definitely, yes. We look forward to supporting that. I want to sum up our interview before we go to the final 5 fire questions by asking you what is one wish you have for women on International Women's Day?
Good question. So I think I would bring a wish both for men and women. So for women, I have this wish that we would be even more conscious about building a new community, a culture. And this is due to, the business culture we have was defined by men because they were there first. About the age for a couple of 100 years ago, we weren't even allowed to own anything, not even here in Denmark. So we're falling behind. So we need a stronger culture. And we need new role models to get a new understanding of who can we be when we're not like the others. That's what I hope for women. And for the men, I really hope to get a better understanding and acknowledgement of the diversity needed in this world. And how can we open our minds? How can we, invite everybody inside to get even bigger value?
That's wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. Thank you for all the advice shared. We're gonna go to the final 5 fire questions, and Mia will now answer our 5 questions with what is your answer directly, book, advice, and so on. So let's start with the first one. What is one book you think everyone should read?
I'm struggling with that one. I did see on your paper that you were going to ask me that question.
Or what is one book that inspired you and you think it's worth mentioning?
Yeah, because I think many books did, and I also just enjoy reading different kinds of literature just to make my brain relax. I usually say The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. Which is a very popular book, but I think it gives a good understanding of how your life can take different turns. So let's go with that one.
Perfect. Sounds great. What is the best piece of advice you have ever received?
Just be yourself.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I for my father, when I did the Dragon's Den the first time, I was so nervous, and I just went, Dad, what am I supposed to do now? And he just gave me this great advice, just be yourself, and I've done that.
Fantastic. Who is your role model?
I must say I haven't had any specific role model, and I think that's also what we need to discuss, because who are they? So I just collect, from different people.
Definitely.
Yeah.
If you were to have another career, what would you choose to do?
I think if, I was, growing up now, starting all over again, I think I would be more artistic. I mean, I would do something more creative. Yeah.
Beautiful. And last question, if you could change places with someone, who would it be and why?
I don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that?
I'm just happy where I am.
That's fantastic. Mia, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
It's been really an inspiring interview, and I can only wish you the best with the company. I can only wish you the best in your personal life, to enjoy every moment. And from our audience, I really hope that they've enjoyed this. Thank you all. Thank you all for being with us today, and stay tuned for more interviews with inspiring female role models.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of FemLead Podcast. Share the news with your friends and follow us on social media at FemLead Podcast everywhere.